Hi, everyone. Deborah Hamilton, Hamilton Law Mediation, Hamilton ADR North Carolina, the Why Do Pets Matter podcast, and of course, this wonderful community. I'm so glad to see everyone here tonight because it is such a busy night. I just got back from walking Junie, and it always mesmerizes me that neighbors have their dogs out and don't have control over them. So we had to wait until they figured out how to catch their dog. And not have them follow me home. So it was a little bit of a trying evening. I was hoping to get home in time to be here, and I am, thank God. So I just wanted to check in with everyone to let them know that to hear how their days are going, to see how they are. And then we're going to talk again about a subject that really has become such an issue in my office. It's amazing because there are so many things to consider now that the courts and legislatures are legislating on how your dogs will be handled if you divorce with pets. It's no longer a case where the courts won't decide it. It's a case where the courts are going to be required to decide it. And I'm working on educating judges in some of my bar association groups to send this piece to a mediator, not because I want more business, I have enough, but because it really is important for the parties to be on the same page when it comes to the care of the pets. And I'll talk more about that after we check in. So I'm going to start with Ingrid. Good to see you, Ingrid. How's everything going?
It's going well, thank you. I just made it myself by the skin of my teeth. Good to see you.
Oh, wonderful. I'm so glad. And all your kids are fine?
Doing fine, thank you. Yes.
And I saw that you were doing such great work with older people and planning for the care of their pets if they get sick, short-term, long-term. So yeah. You're like one of our guardian angels that help people really prepare for older age and different maladies and things, and maybe even hospice, but also to talk to them about their pets.
Yes.
So very important. It's very important, and people don't really think about it. It's one of the Ds, and death is only one. There's hopefully a long period of time when you're older and maybe can't care for a pet full time, but then maybe there's somebody there who can help you. So I always like to make sure that people have a plan in place, whether they're 20 years old, 40 years old, 70 years old, or even older. So I'm so glad you're here, Ingrid. And hopefully the weather is warming up there because I know it's been awfully cold.
Yeah, it's been a very mild winter. We had one very cold weekend, but thankfully I'm not complaining. It's been an easy winter so far, hoping that it
remains that way.
Yeah.
So you must be living in a different part of Connecticut than Sally, because they have had black ice today and a tough sledding today. How are you and the girls, Sally?
The girls are sound asleep. I think I overdid it yesterday planning for today, but nobody tumbled or slipped. So that's a great thing. And I just hate it. It's pitch black out, but
But at least it's not pitch black out now at 4 p.m. It's pitch black out now by maybe 6 p.m.
Yeah, but anyway, it's getting better. Every day is getting better. And in the afternoon, we did not have to wear jackets while we walked. So that's a good thing. Good.
That is fabulous. Susan, Susan's not connected with audio yet. So I'm going to see if Kaylina is around to check in with her and the wonderful Beagles.
Evening, everyone. How is everyone?
I think we're doing good. How are you surviving the cold? It's warmer now, right? Today was a better day.
Today was a better day. Monday was like summertime, and we actually saw people walking around in shorts and flip-flops, and I laughed because it was warm, but it wasn't that warm. But after being 4, I'm sure it probably felt really good to people.
Yeah.
We're good. It was bitterly cold. The puppies loved it. The dogs loved it. I was not so happy, but everyone here is doing good. My mom's yard is half a mud pit and half permafrost. So, but all is good.
Oh, good, 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 good. And are any of the puppies leaving yet, or they're all still there?
They're all still here. It's been a challenge, but they're all still here.
Yeah, because they are mischievous now, and they are little. I will not say the S word. I will say the P word. They are little poopy machines.
Yes.
They really are. So it's really interesting. So I take my hat off to you, because after they're 12 or 13 weeks old, right?
Yeah, they were 4 months old on Saturday, and we took them to their first beginner puppy competition. And one of them got a group 3 and one of them got a group 4, but it was the funniest thing to watch because they were so adorable.
Yeah, they get it for cuteness a lot of times at the 4 to 6 month level, because they're hardly walking on a leash. Well, what they're doing cannot necessarily be called walking on a leash.
Yes.
It can be called not choking on a leash.
Exactly.
Absolutely. It's really interesting. There's such a gamut that I'm going to cover at the workshop, because there are people like the ones Ingrid cares for who are older, who just need to make sure their dogs are well taken care of as they age. There's Sally, who's young and has 2 show dogs, but has co-owners and everything, but still has to make a plan for her pets. There's you who have puppies and shows, and what do you want to do with that? And maybe you have frozen sperm as well. I'm dealing with that with a divorcing couple now. So it really is something that everyone needs to understand. You have to make a plan for. I was just on a call. I'm going to get to you in a minute, Susan. Don't worry, I didn't forget. I was just on a call with the American Bar Association International Animal Law Committee, and all of them were mesmerized that I have this group. And I said, well, do all of you have a plan? Now, these are lawyers. Okay, so I'm just saying that these are lawyers. I said, do all of you have a plan for your pet if something were to happen to you? And there were crickets. There were crickets. They all have a verbal plan, and we all know what that means. I would like to make sure everyone has at least the writing on the fridge. That's my big thing, the writing on the fridge. If something were to happen to me, please call Deborah Hamilton. Here's her number. She'll come over. Hopefully it's a nosy neighbor, or it's someone who can come pretty quickly, because it's really important for us to make sure our pets are cared for in the event something happens to us, short-term, long-term. And I've had 3 friends go down from balance issues and break something. One of them is my dear friend, Kent Cruz, and his wife. They go from Wisconsin in the winter, which we all know is a beautiful place to be, very cold, to California, to the shores, to the ocean in California. They have a little place in California they go to. And the first day they were there, she fell down the stairs. And she was my poster child for my new knee, because she had a new knee and it repaired so well. Everything was great. Well, now she has a broken femur above the new knee. So it is stinky. We can't really tell what's going to happen. So we always, always, always have to make a plan. Now, Kent and his wife, Ginny, don't have pets, so that's good. They just have each other. But if you do have pets and something like that happens, and I know, Ingrid, you probably see it all the time, because gravity is not our friend after 60. After 70, it's even less of our friend. So we really need to make sure we have a plan for our pets, long-term, short-term. Susan, how's the Maggie girl doing? Is she getting a little more training? Did you find someone?
Honestly, no, I haven't found someone yet. Not sure why my camera is not working right now, but apologize for that. Yeah, no, I do definitely want to work with a trainer. I've been kind of preoccupied looking for a home without a staircase, because one of my biggest fears is falling down a flight of steps. And
you and I both.
Yeah, I've had a number of different falls over the years, and thankfully I've not broken any bones, but I certainly appreciate what you're saying. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot, though, about what Connie said last week when she was talking about the Rimadyl causing cancer in dogs. And I'm sure that my 2 dogs were prescribed Rimadyl at some point in their lives. I'm hoping we can expand more. I know this is primarily about making the plan, but I love to hear broader topics as well, like.
Well, I
think-
can always, I'm still working on inviting people to come. It tends that 6:30 is a hard time to ask people to come because some of my colleagues who are trust and estate attorneys are still working at 6:30. Some of the veterinarians are still working,
That's
but
understandable.
I'm moving on it to make sure that somebody can come at least for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes to answer questions, to make sure that we broaden our horizons, because it really is important to get more information out there. And of course, we're going to broaden our horizons next weekend when we talk about making that plan in the workshop, because it really is an important thing. Not this weekend, but next weekend, the 18th and 19th, to make sure that you have your plans made. So without further ado, I think I'm going to begin just talking a little bit about the things I have seen in divorce and why it's so important. Now, it's the disagreement. Okay, fine. However, now in the legislative world and the legal world, your ability to make a decision for your pets may be taken away from you, because courts are beginning to legislate, not courts, legislatures are legislating so that courts now have laws and regulations that they have to follow. In New York, we have a regulation in domestic relations now that says that the courts have to, if the people can't decide who gets the pet, the people have to be submitted to the judge, and he'll decide the well-being of the pet. What's the well-being? And I think I spoke earlier about the first decision that came down where one party left the house because somebody does, and they couldn't take their 2 Rottweilers with you. That probably doesn't surprise anyone on this call. And so they stayed home, but that person was the primary caregiver. But because they left the dogs behind, the judge felt that that was where the dogs had known love and security, and so left it with someone who, loved the dogs, but never took care of the dogs. So the walks the dogs got and everything that the dogs were used to were no longer going to be part of their lives, because the person who walked them no longer had access. He didn't give them custody or visitation. He decided one party would get the dogs. So if you're thinking that the judge is going to say, okay, Sally, you and Gordon are going to split the dogs 2 months on, 2 months off, never going to happen, because judges do not want to have to then re-adjudicate disagreements in custody agreements. So you're going to either get the dog or not get the dog. And I know that most of you here understand that if that happens, what's the financial basis for caring for the dog going forward? If I can't see my dogs, why would I pay for them? And I've had many pushbacks on my Facebook posts when I say things like that, because people will say, well, if they love them, they pay their bills. And I go, you're absolutely right, but they can't even see them and they have to pay their bills. And so there's got to be a happy medium where if you're paying alimony, so to speak, for the care of your pet, you get to see the pet at some point, or at the very least. And I know most of the judges I speak to say, wow, we never thought of that, because I'm crazy. And that I, always think of these things. What happens if something happens to the custodial pet owner? Where do the pets go? Is there something in there that says if something happens to Jim and he gets my dogs, that if something happens to him, I get the dogs back? It really is important, and nobody's thinking of it. So we're going to make sure that we tell all of our friends who are in divorce, getting divorced with pets, or people who are divorce attorneys, that it is a really big question that has to be addressed. It's something that is better addressed by the attorneys in a collaborative situation if they can. I'm working on a collaborative situation now, and it's an interesting one because every time we speak, the decisions and the desires change, which I think is wonderful, because we really are digging deeply down into what it is people really want. And so at the beginning, the kennel name was important. Now the kennel name isn't important. At one point, it was important to co-own the dogs. Now it's not important to co-own the dogs. It is so important that we spend a little time discussing this, because when you first go in in, no matter who you are, when you first go in to choose or decide what to do, you have this idea. And today I was part of a transformative mediation discussion. And she said, it's looking at the problem as the driver of the motorcycle and then as the passenger on the motorcycle, because it's two different views. And you have to really understand that it's two different views and take the time to understand what's going to work. You're going to walk in and say, I want this, 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 and this. And then maybe that's not exactly what you want. So really to make sure if there is a separation or relationship breakup, recognizing that your pet doesn't hate your ex, you know, that's the term I always use, your pet doesn't hate your ex, and know that the transparency by which you talk to people and talk to the other owners, and talk to the people who might be your backup caregivers, because not only do people like us need people who are going to be our caregivers, people who are divorced need caregivers too. Now, are those going to be the same caregivers, or are those going to be separate caregivers? And what happens if something goes wrong? Do the caregivers know they give it back to Sally? If something happens to Gordon, do they know these things? It really is a lot more involved than we think. And just for another minute or two before I open it up for questions and comments, I was on another webinar with a woman who's in South Africa who I spoke to, I guess about 3 or 4, maybe it was before COVID. No one knows. It's either pre-COVID or post-COVID that you speak to people now. And she was just starting a mediation practice, helping people divorce with animals. She's an animal behaviorist. She's not an attorney. And she now has done a bang-up job putting together a program teaching attorneys how to handle their clients in divorce with pets from an animal behaviorist point of view. And a lot of what she said was really great. I did, put a question in the box and say, do you ever go back and recheck? I am a huge proponent when relationships break up, because a lot of people think, well, they're just using the pet to get back at me. Well, that might be true. However, if we build in the agreement, a 3-month, a 6-month, a 9-month check-in to see how it's working out, then if it is only done because I want to make your life miserable and I'm actually making my own life miserable because I don't want to take care of the dogs, we can renegotiate the agreement. And she said she does do that because it is important to see how the dogs are adjusting to their new life. The other thing that she said was a little troubling to me, because as a mediator, we aren't supposed to put our own, and it's hard. I have to tell you how hard it is, because I always put duct tape on the table of my mediations. And now that we're on Zoom, I put duct tape on my desk. Nobody can see it. I hold it up usually at the beginning. And I'm trying to figure out how to open a screen and have a picture of duct tape there so everybody can remember. I really want to make sure I don't tell people what to do, or I don't make decisions for them. And the one thing she said that troubled me was, she said, if they don't ask to share the dog, don't bring it up. And I said, well, that's fine, as long as if something happens to the custodial parent, the dog comes back to the other one. That should always be considered. Why should the dog not go back? And if the non-custodial parent doesn't want the dog back, if something happens, that's fine. Then let's work on where the dog's going to go if something happens to you. So I never think about not bringing a topic up. I usually want to throw all the dice on the table and then pick up the marbles, let's use marbles, and pick up the marbles that work for me, as opposed to not having all the marbles on the table. And I think that's true in every area of the MAAP plan, that you really have to consider every eventuality, not just the ones that you think of, which is why working in a group in a workshop makes it so much easier, because so many people have so many ideas. I don't know how many new ideas I received here and how many more Ds I received here by people giving me ideas on what it was they needed to do. So I'm going to check in with everybody, because I know that we've covered this divorce question before, but it really does. I want to make sure everyone understands how legislatures are now getting in the mix. So if you don't have a plan for where your pet's going to go and you get caught up in the courtroom, whatever is best for your pet may not be what happens, because it's going to be up to the judge. So I don't want you to be forced into making a decision in a mediation because, you don't want the judge to do it. However, it may behoove you to have a conversation or to write down a plan when you still like the person. That's my biggest thing. Let's write a plan on how the pets are going to be dispersed while we still like each other, because then we might be able to do it once we stop liking each other, which is important. So I'm going to start with you, Susan, because I know this doesn't have anything to do with you in your moment now, but given that you wanted to talk about some new and interesting things, did anything come up for you that would be new and interesting that we could cover while we talk about this?
Not really. I mean, I think overall, making a plan for your pet, it's always important to talk about issues that affect dogs. And I was really surprised when Connie mentioned about the Rimadyl causing cancer. So, I wouldn't want anyone to administer that medication to my dog.
Well, I think so. I'm doing a case with a person who had a vet issue. And I think that one of the things that I'm going to talk about at the two vet medical associations I'm speaking at, one in Texas and one in New Jersey, and that's why being transparent in divorce or being transparent in veterinary medicine is so important. And even in elder care, being transparent about the care of pets going forward is really important. So I think if a doctor or a veterinarian is able to explain to you their reasoning behind using Rimadyl and being able to ask them what the side effects are and then weigh the pros and cons, then you'll understand what the benefits are and if the risk reward is worth taking the medication. Rimadyl is one of those drugs where taking it can have side effects, yet the benefits, depending on each dog and even each breed, because some breeds are affected by the side effects of Rimadyl more than others. And I'll see if I can get one of my vet friends on to talk to us about, because that would be addressing the needs of your pet. Would you want your dog to take Rimadyl if in fact they needed it? And if that was the case, what would you consider the most important reasons why you would give it to them if you're a conscientious objector to Rimadyl? Because there are other medications. So yes, Susan, so your veterinarian prescribed Rimadyl. It might have been the drug of choice at the time. Maybe it was at a time when another medication wouldn't have worked as effectively. And there are side effects to almost everything we do. Everything we take, everything we eat. I mean, we've watched those commercials on television where if you take the psoriasis medication,
Right.
so many side effects. It's like
Right.
your eyeballs
Including
fall
death,
off, your
right?
ears fall off, right? Your ears fall off, your eyeballs fall out, but you will not have psoriasis. And I go, I don't know. I'm not so sure. I'm not so
Right,
sure this is
right.
worth it. So
But you said it's transparency, and that's the thing I don't think is often provided by veterinarians. I don't think they really give you that information. They just
I think so. For most of my veterinarian colleagues, I think they believe they do. I think that we as pet owners, there's so much information being downloaded to us, and I'd love to know from Kaylina and Ingrid and Sally if this is true. Little off topic, but very important. As pet owners, they download so much information to us, and two things happen usually. We don't want to look stupid, right? Because we don't want them to think we don't understand what they're saying. And we can't remember everything they tell us because there's so much. And they believe that we're going to remember everything they tell us, and we're not. And then we don't want to ask because we don't want to look stupid. At least I'm speaking about myself. I'm not going to attribute this to anyone else, but sometimes a vet will say something and I'll go, oh yeah. And I'm like, I got to go home and look that up on Dr. Google because I don't have any idea what that means. I know that Sally has a lot of opinion of this because Sally does a lot of really great research on everything she gives to her older girls because she wants to know what the side effects are.
Yeah.
And she and I were very lucky that we had a veterinarian well, she still has the veterinarian and I don't, that is incredibly transparent, who, if you ask her a question or you don't understand, you will never feel stupid. Sally, I'll hit you up in a minute, but Kaylina raised her hand. Tell us what you're thinking, Kaylina.
Well, with my vets, thankfully, they will explain things to me and give me information. If I don't understand something there, I will ask a question. And, they explain whatever it is or what to do or how it affects whatever the dog is supposed to be getting treated with. And thankfully, they write in their notes all of the information and the directives that they have given. And when I get home, they'll email me a copy, or the receptionist will email me a copy, especially when one of the dogs needs some treatment. So I have everything written right there, because whoever remembers to take a pen and paper with you when you go into your vet's office? And my vet has always told me, if you don't understand something, ask a question, because sometimes they forget that they're talking to people who might not understand everything they're talking about, and they don't want us to feel stupid, because if we feel stupid and don't ask the question, we could potentially harm our dogs.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? And it isn't even the fact that we feel stupid. We just might be on overload and we're emotional. I mean, if our dogs are sick and we have to give them medication, I'm telling you that, if I remember 50% of what I'm supposed to do, and it's written on the jar, so there's the good tell that it says give it twice a day, right? However, I think that it's just an emotional time. And I love that your vets have your records on. I'm going to check on my vet, one of the 5 vets that I have now in North Carolina, to try to meet the needs of the one vet I had in New York. I'll see if any of my directions are on my, I guess they call it my portal, right, where my pet is. Ingrid, you have something.
Well, I have a couple of comments. First of all, in regards to Susan being in veterinary for so many years, I worked with many different vets, animal emergency and small animal practice. And generally, I've been out of it for a while, but I still have pets and still go. They're not so much transparent about, I tell my clients, whether it be human or people with animals, you have to be proactive for your own health, and you have to be proactive for your pet's health. And you can't expect them to disclose everything, they just don't. And you're finding that they give you a printout now of, are you getting printouts at your vet from possible side effects and things?
Are you getting anything or no?
With the medication, 2 of the medications that one of the dogs was given from the emergency vet, it's a VCA hospital. It came with the side effects. It came with a pamphlet that had the exact same information that we get as humans when we get medication. And I was really surprised. Good to know.
Well, they've stepped it up then. And then another thing I was going to suggest for Susan is if you have a care plan, maybe you could put in your care plan medications that you wouldn't want your dog to be on.
That is absolutely true, Ingrid. And that's why addressing the needs of the pet, we talk about what it is that you like to have your dog receive, and then also what you wouldn't. So if your dog is going to take certain medications that react poorly with Irish setters, well, you're going to list those medications and say, my line of Irish setters don't do well on this, and this. I know Sally probably could talk a blue streak about the medications that affect Athena negatively. And it's been a dance with the veterinarian to find the ones that allow her to eat, make her not have raging yuckies, and still have her skin be good and her ears not inflamed. So it's a delicate dance. And that's why I always say that conversation, as you said, Ingrid, has to be had. And often veterinarians don't want to open that Pandora box because they have 15 minutes to get through with you. And if you ask that question, it could end up to be longer, and then maybe you'll go to Dr. Google, and then you'll have more questions because Dr. Google's going to say something. So it really is important that we not get angry with our veterinarians if they don't have time to answer our questions now, but require, like Kaylina suggested, that the veterinarians step it up and put the pamphlet in with the medication so we can read it ourselves, or put something up on their website. This is a frequently used medication, amoxicillin. These are the frequent side effects of amoxicillin, and it's not recommended in pugs or Boston Terriers or Bulldogs or whatever. I'm just making that up. I have no idea if that's true. But just, to make sure that people have a place to go to get information. It's always better to get that information as you're there, but if you don't, then it's better to have a place to go to get it. I know my vets here in North Carolina have told me just go to our website. It's as if talking to me might give them the hives, but I'm getting used to it. Sally, I know that you've had this conversation many times with me and with Dr. Williman, and it really is important to you to know what medications the girls are on.
Well, Dr. Williman's very straightforward. Sometimes I take the dogs to a local vet, and sometimes the local vet is overwhelmed. And so I get the person at the front desk and I come in and I'll say, these are the problems I'm having, this. And she runs out and she goes, here's your prescription, Rimadyl. And I say, I don't want this. This is steroid. I will not give this to my dogs. And then the person at the front desk has a hissy fit. And I said, can I talk to the vet? No, you can't talk to the vet. I'm like, okay, then I want nothing. And then I drive to Dr. Williman, who will talk to me and tell me. So it's communication. You have to have clear communication, because if I just said, oh, great, I'll take the Rimadyl. I had just lost an Irish setter who was on Rimadyl. This was the next Irish setter. I said, no, I won't put this dog on Rimadyl. There's got to be another drug.
Yeah. I mean, it is a squeaky wheel thing. You just have to be someone who asks questions. And there's, as I said, please don't feel stupid. No question is stupid for me or for anyone else, because if you don't know, you can't advocate for yourself and you can't advocate for your dogs. And as Ingrid said, she tells her people and her pet people that you have to advocate to understand what it is the health community is giving to you or your pet. I can remember that a few months ago, I had a little bit of a heart palpitation as I walked around the golf course, and my physician's assistant gave me 2 more medications and never told me what they were. So I read the descriptions and I said, these have way many more side effects than the heart palpitations I'm having. So I pitched them out, and I have yet to talk to anybody to know what they were supposed to do, but I seem fine now. So I'm not going to worry about it, and I'm not going to go on them. But you really do have to advocate for yourself and read. You sometimes get, I have to say, I will raise my hand that I sometimes get complacent when you have a wonderful vet who you trust immensely, because there are times when Ren would give me things and I would never ask. I just trusted her because she knew how I wanted my pets to be cared for. So if you have a vet that you know, like, and trust, and you've had a long relationship with them, maybe the questions can be asked later, or maybe you can email them if they're very busy and can't answer you then. But again, doing a full circle, because God, we run out of time way too fast here. In the divorce room, do I want to give my dog Rimadyl? No, but the dogs were awarded to my husband, and he might say, hey, I'll give him Rimadyl. What do I care? It maybe makes them feel better. So these are the kind of things you have to work out when you're working out what's going to go forward. And also, if in fact, as in one of my cases a few years ago, one person got one dog and the other person got the other dog, you don't have control over the other dog. That was what you gave up when you decided we were going to split the dogs. And so your dog might not get Rimadyl, but the other dog might get Rimadyl. And that's that. Some things, remember in the workshops, we're going to talk about this. Some of the things that we will address as the needs of our pet will be gotta have. I gotta have this. I've got to have indoor living. I have to have a single home, no cats, especially Junie, no bunnies if I can help it, because I almost had my arm ripped off tonight before I got on by the bunnies that Junie saw. These are things that gotta have. And then the nice to have would be, well, my dog really thrives with other dogs. I'd like him to live with another dog, but if he can't, okay. Or my dog loves cats. I'd like him to live with cats, but if the person who could take him doesn't have cats, that's fine. My dog jumps fences, so I need to tell people that they jump fences. So when you're divorcing, or when you're placing your pet because you can't care for it any longer, which I hope never happens, I hope to help everyone find people who have made it their cottage industry to take care of your pets when you can't take care of them short-term, long-term. Because I think, I'm going to check in with Ingrid after I say this, I think that if you can leave pets, cats a little more easily than dogs, but if you can leave pets with older people and have people drop in and take care of them and make sure they're getting let out and they're getting fed, because the last thing we want is for the dogs to be living in an undesirable situation. That's when we have the dog go live with someone and maybe the dog comes back to see the person. But Ingrid, I know that you've had to deal with this in your position as well, that, people really want their dogs to stay with them.
Yes. And my passion is to have seniors still have their pets. And I've even assisted over 90-year-olds because sometimes they're discriminated with adoptions.
Yep.
And I've co-signed, and I am very hands-on on going, make sure they have their heartworm pills and make sure they're getting properly groomed and they're getting fed. And as long as they have the means and they have a backup plan for the pet, I have no problem helping with an adoption. I have a couple of questions about the divorce subject. Do you run into any cases where they're not just dogs?
Horses, big
Yeah.
time, cats, birds, parrots,
Okay.
sometimes reptiles.
Then the other question is, as far as the legislature, is it state by state?
It is. So the original states that had well-being of the pet would be decided by the court were Alaska, California, and Illinois. Now New York has best interest. Tennessee is working on well-being. Washington, D.C. is working on, I believe, best interest. So it's not uniform across the United States.
Okay.
And the definition of well-being or best interest have never been defined. They are amorphous, like they are with children. What's in the best interest of kids? Well, the good news is kids can tell you. However, pets can't. And so drives me nuts when decisions are made because situations are such that you couldn't take the pet with you when you left and left it behind. Or if when you were leaving, you took the pet and assured the person you were going to share them with it, and then they never saw it again. Both of those have happened to clients of mine, and it really is unfair to the person who doesn't have the pet anymore, because they're going through a divorce. It's an emotional situation anyway. If they rely on the statements that you make, which is, well, I have to move out and I can't find an apartment that takes pets, so I'm going to leave the dogs with you, but I'm going to come by and walk the dogs and take care of the dogs, and then it becomes difficult for me to do that. And so you get the pets, even though you've never taken care of the pets, or you walk out the door and swear on a stack of Bibles that you will let the dog come back and visit. That doesn't happen either. And then I think the thing that drives me the most nuts is when the story changes. So there's the story I get when we first start, and then when it looks like we might have to share the dog with Ingrid, then the story changes and there's some sort of verbal abuse that would occur if, in fact, they shared the dog. And I always think, which is my biggest thing that I push almost all the time, there are so many cottage industries out there with people who are pretty competent. I mean, who do, like Ingrid said, she helps people adopt and then she checks on them. And if they have the wherewithal to pay for a monthly visit or a monthly, pay monthly for a visit every day, then it could be a cottage industry that you create in every Atria independent living facility and every other independent living facility, because the independent living facilities ask you when you check in who your dog's caregiver will be if something happens to you. And then they never ask again. So you could be living there for 10 years and that caregiver could have died, predeceased you.
That's
So
a very good point.
They never ask again. And
They don't ask again.
I spoke at a Connecticut shoreline nursing home group. And I said to them, you guys are doing independent living and nursing homes and you're allowing pets, which I highly recommend and I absolutely agree with. Yet you don't have any system in place to assist people to keep the dogs with them, like have an Ingrid come in to make sure they're feeding the dog, they're walking the dog, whatever, have a set. Because if you had 10 people with 10 dogs in one of those buildings and somebody came in and walked the dog for 15, 20 minutes, made sure it had water, made sure it had food, and they saw 10 people, and it was, 2 hours and they made $200, I think they probably, would be happy to do it. It just is something that people don't think about. And I think about these things because, as we all know, everyone who listens to this every week, my brain is constantly going on what it is that will allow us to keep our dogs as long as possible, have us share our dogs if we can, and of course, have our dogs, cats, birds, horses, lizards, have a soft landing if something were to happen to the caregiver, because it just is, they can't defend themselves. They can't find a new home. If you believe that people are going to do something that's not in writing, think again. And make sure you check in with everyone who you have signed up as your caregiver. So it's 7:13. I want to respect your time. Does anybody have anything they want to add? Because this was a really great talk this evening about really making a plan and asking your vet, making a plan for divorce or even for any relationship breakup, and asking your vet, what's in this, and should I give it to my dogs, and what's the side effect? So we had an extra bonus discussion tonight. I just want to point out that if anybody's interested, and I would be grateful if you would cut and paste the workshop and just put it up on your Facebook page for your friends to see, so that somebody who you might know but don't know wants to make a plan for their pet, they might join us, because we're filling up pretty quickly, and I'm going to limit it at 20 so that we have not too big workshop groups, because I want to be able to get to every workshop group. And I really only want them to be about 5 people each, and I'll be the 6th one when I come in and ask questions. But if you could just cut and paste it and then put it on your Facebook page or your LinkedIn page or any of the groups that you do for animals, because it really is important to let people know. As I said, I had that ABA meeting today with the animal law. And when I said, does everyone have a plan for their pets? They all, crickets. I go, okay, so you can come to my workshop if you'd like. I actually, because I am just ridiculous, I put the link in the chat for this ABA thing saying, guys, if you want to figure out how to do this, come to this workshop, because the attorneys who do trust and estates are going to help you make your plan. Absolutely. They are not going to help you address the needs of your pet. They're not going to help you really make that plan that covers everything. They're not going to help you find those caregivers, and they are only going to publish it with themselves. So your vet and the other people aren't really going to know. So come join us. Any lasting thoughts? I'm going to start with you, Kayleen. Any last thoughts?
I think it's important what you said with the relationships with your pets. Speak about it while everything is still on good terms and you think nothing might happen, but it is something that needs to be talked about. So when you get to the point you all don't like each other, you're not fighting about the dogs.
And that goes for co-owners as well, Kayleen, and not only, spouses, but if you co-own, like Sally and I, or if you adopted from a rescue. You know, if you want to place that dog because it isn't working out, you've got to read your rescue contract. True, they might not find out, they might not chase you, but if they do, you'll be in contract violation. Ingrid, what about you? Any last thoughts?
That's interesting. So what if you are a co-owner and you get divorced and your spouse wants custody? What happens then?
Yeah, if you co-own together, that's half of the cases in my office because of the fact that dog show people call me. So we
Right.
work out what's going to happen going forward. They either split the dogs or they take their names off the dogs, or they decide what's going to happen. And no normal attorney knows about the cabal that happens when you co-own a dog and you breed it, or it. Yeah. So that's why coming to the workshop is going to be really important. We also talk about frozen sperm. We won't even get into that tonight, or we'll be here for another hour. But if you have frozen sperm, what do you do with that? AKC is now starting a preservationist sperm bank where you could leave your sperm in the preservationist sperm bank, which is great. And a lot of people are looking forward to doing it, but God bless you, it's true.
Thank you. Sorry.
But a lot of people don't want to do it because, you know what? I hate Ingrid's Irish setters, and I don't want her getting any of my sperm to make her line better. So there's that. So we'll talk about that at the workshop because it's an important piece. Susan, how about you? Any last thoughts?
No, I don't. I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay. And Sally, I'm going to wrap up with you as I love to.
No, I think, I say the same thing every week. Clear communication, just as simple and as clearly as you can say it. And then there's no question.
Right. And be transparent.
Yeah, absolutely. Just put all the cards right out on the table because that's it. Be transparent.
Because it makes the dog's life easier. So remember, the MAAP plan navigates the journey your pet takes when you can't care for it. That's why it's called the MAAP plan. And again, if you can, I would love you to cut and paste the link that's in the chat so you can share it with all your groups and friends. And until next week, kiss your babies for me. Ingrid, I don't know the names of all of your dogs. I apologize, but give them kisses for me. Susan, give Maggie a kiss for me. Sally, give Athena and Rock Chi-Chi a kiss for me. And Kaylina, all those little bagel puppies, give them kisses for me. Take care, everyone. And until next time, this is Deborah Hamilton Law and Mediation, the Why Do Pets Matter podcast, and of course, this wonderful MAAP community call. Take care.